Hello, and welcome back to the Hystorians podcast. I'm Des.
And I'm Liz.
Hi, Liz.
Hi, Des.
I am so ready to tell you about today's topic. It is something that has seeped into every single one of the topics that I've done, but I've not yet been able to cover it. It's a single uniting thing between many things in my life, things that I've researched in my personal time for the podcast, things that are involved in my job somehow. This single thing leaks into a lot of our current culture today, and also little fun tidbits that we kind of like read about every now and again.
Ooh, I love it when you're able to be like, I see the webs now. I see them.
Exactly. This is a huge part of the spider web of history for the things that I've been researching.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not that it's crazy important to those topics, but it's always included. It's a little salt added into it, a little spice.
Honey, everything is
Is salt
important.
a spice?
To white people it is, I think.
Maybe.
As a white person, Caucasian mayo ho.
Possibly.
Call me Hellman's. I'd say, yeah, that's a little spicy.
So this is some spice amongst history. So I had
Are we
to
gonna be salty about it?
I think we will be salty about points of it. This is very
Love.
multifaceted. So I gave you a prompt. And that prompt.
Sorry. You gave me 2 prompts.
I mean, okay, everyone listen, okay? I'm gonna hold your hand when I would tell you this. I'm not good at prompts, okay? And I gave Liz a prompt that I Googled and thought would lead to what I needed to let you people know. And then what she took from that prompt and what she was able to find was not at all what I needed for this video.
Okay, recording. Give me the camera. Give me the camera. Give me the mic. Give me the mic.
Yeah.
So let me tell you, reader, she told me it's 5 words, baby.
Yeah.
It was globalization during the Gilded Age. And then it became Gilded Age entertainment. So you went from 5 to 3, and I loved it.
Yeah.
Not gonna lie.
It will make sense when we get to the topic.
100%. I'm just like, I hope I'm able to set this bass tone for you.
It's because the prompt is designed to be a primer for the background of the topic. And so I had to change it to, the Gilded Age entertainment.
Yeah.
Specifically telling her to kind of look at the class differences and be thinking of that. So what did you find?
So, I hope I found the right stuff.
Remember, because it's a Google prompt, there is no right or wrong. We kind of get to pick apart that.
That's true. So what came up was like Gilded Age leisure and recreation. And it was an interesting time because it was a time of transition. So from like the stick up the ass Victorian time into more like, hey, there's more money being about higher class families and everything. So we're able to act a little goofy with our money and our entertainment. So that was kind of clashing. It was kind of figuring out what the socially acceptable entertainment was. But parlor culture also came up.
Right.
And parlor culture actually sparked my interest quite a bit because I used to work in a quite old home that was in an old industrialist family, and very interesting stuff. But they had 2 salons, a women's salon and a men's salon, that then they ripped out a wall and then just made it one huge parlor.
Bad choice on their part.
I know, and it was so pretty before.
Great, now my embroidery smells like cigarettes.
Exactly. The men's side, they would smoke cigars, and then they
wouldn't be as bad, but
they would have but they would have like thick curtains dividing them, trying to cut off that like
wow, sure would have been nice if they just would have kept the wall,
right?
Anyways, I shouldn't be commenting upon their taste in home decor, I guess.
But an aspect that came up that kind of piqued my interest relating to that was that furnishing the home to entertain was brought to the forefront. And so it was like, okay, we want to furnish this parlor a certain way because we want to entertain our friends and families. And during this time, it was kind of bleeding down to like the upper middle class people as well. And the furniture started becoming a little bit more lightweight, surprisingly, because of like they wanted to move it. That was a fact that came up. Oh, who knows? But I was like, interesting, because all of the furniture back then was heavy as hell.
Yeah, real wood.
So for like the upper class, there were like large lavish balls. It was kind of still that old money of
A little stuffier.
like, yeah, and oh no, we're going to the ball. You know, like,
or the opera.
yes.
Or very highbrow.
Yeah. Then there were like regular plays and shows that were kind of accessible to anyone in a way.
Right.
If you could buy
As long
a
as you
ticket.
could pay.
Yeah. If you could buy a ticket, you could see it. I'm sure there were limitations.
Because not everyone could afford to buy a ticket. The much lower classes, would struggle with that, but they still might be able to save up for like a birthday, special occasion.
Yeah, like I imagine it's also an opportunity to people watch too.
Yeah.
Where it's like, oh no, we're going to see how the other side lives for a little bit. There were also gaming parlors were starting to pop up some more. And that kind of transcends throughout the classes. Either way, it was kind of like looked down upon.
Right.
No matter what class you were in. Sports were starting to come about quite a bit. So like golf, basketball. And then I thought, well, there's kind of class divides within that as well.
Right.
Because golf, I'm pretty sure, was adopted quite quickly by upper class. Oh, I don't want to break too much of a sweat.
Right. Yeah. Different sports. I mean, a lot of what we have today kind of stems from that time period.
Yeah. And so like basketball and football and baseball also started. There was also a commercialization of entertainment at this time because of the railroads and everything. They were able to go on tour, essentially.
Yeah, you could get places now.
And that came up in Dr. Quinn, Medicine Woman.
They played that baseball team.
And then they tried to screw them out of their money, and then they won because of community or some shit.
Yeah, some sort of moral.
I don't know. I was probably crying. But so there were plays, operas, circuses. I also thought, when was Ringling Brothers brought about? Because that kind of transcended classes as well for entertainment, where it's like, if you can buy your ticket, you can go in.
See the show.
But also for higher class, it was one of those entertainments that was kind of looked down upon, where it's like, no, we can go to the opera, we can go and see.
And there's that class divide again.
Yeah.
All of a sudden it springs up, even in something as minute as how you want to spend your free time.
Mm-hmm. And then
what little you have of it.
Yes. And then last but not least, vaudeville started popping up as
true.
well during this time. So access to the lower classes, comedy being available as like a way to escape. It was kind of like a first introduction to mass escapism.
Yeah. Wow, convenient how that goes hand in hand with things becoming more industrial.
Yeah. Yep. And it's like, I could get into industrialization, but I won't. But I also wanted to point out, like, the plays. Oscar Wilde was starting to become a little bit more popular during this time. Started making his name for himself. And so it was teetering between those classes where it was like, he definitely bit his thumb at the higher classes and pretty much everyone was fair game. But also it was like within the Gilded Age, the show, you saw how political some of these theaters were as well.
Right.
Because they, within themselves, the attendance was a social outing.
Yeah.
It was.
They had loyal people who would attend certain theaters.
And you wanted to be seen
at a certain place.
Yes. And attending a certain show.
Yeah.
So that's kind of my quick rundown. A lot of it came back to the commercialization of entertainment, where it was like introducing this new leisure activity or something, or a new performance entertainment, and then monetizing it on top of it. So it kind of relates to today too.
Right.
Because everyone's monetizing everything.
Yeah. And in a way, it's trying to make something appealing for everyone.
Yes.
So thank you so much. That was a great job covering the basics of entertainment within the Gilded Age and the class divide of all of it. So I am so excited to announce our topic today. It is something that I in no means am trying to cover this entirely. What I'm going to provide to you is a general summary, and we're going to kind of go into the little Swiss cheese holes of this big cheese and take a little tour around to some of the more interesting parts of it, because I think it'll be very enjoyable for the listeners. So, this is not everything. There are hundreds upon thousands of articles and books about this. So, without any further ado, today we're going to be covering the World's Columbian Exposition of 1893, otherwise better known as the Chicago World's Fair.
I know about this. I'm so excited.
Good.
Oh, I'm so excited to hear from you.
This fair is very complex, and there's a lot to be said about how it came about and also the happenings within it.
I know how to make a soda pop from the World's Fair.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. I helped at that old house, actually.
Mm-hmm.
It's all connected.
That's what I say. Everything connects back to this.
But at that old house I worked at, we would also do like summer camps, essentially, where it was during the morning, like daycares or summer schools or summer camps would come by, and we would have like a
living history
stations where they could go learn how to make the first kind of root beer, and then learn more about the Columbian.
Say it however you want, because there's 10 million ways to say it. You can call it the Columbian Exposition, you can call it the Chicago Exhibition, you can call it the
World's
Exposition, World's Fair.
So and it was the most fun like section, and the kids always loved it. It was so much fun.
It's so fun, and it's a place of many firsts, and that's where you get things, like soda pop and things. I mean, it became popular there essentially, and things like that kind of all emanate from this. It's like everything leads back to the World's Fair.
Yes.
So World's Fairs in general, while Chicago is one of the most popular ones and most often referred to from what I've found in my historical findings, it is by no means the first, nor even the first in America.
Yep.
So the first World's Fair was called the Great Exhibition, or the Crystal Palace Exposition, in London in 1851.
I didn't know it went all the way back then.
Yeah, it went back a ways. And that one was just in one big building, that Crystal Palace.
Yeah.
Then there was the American World's Fair in Philadelphia in 1876 that was to celebrate the first 100 years of American independence. Then the one right before this was the Paris Universal Exposition, and it's the one that the Columbian Exposition tries to live up to. It's always trying to beat the Paris Universal Exposition. Very competitive between the countries.
If I remember correct, weren't there like a bunch of competitions between architects and everything trying to vie for the Chicago to be the architect? So many.
Oh, there was a
Chicago's
fight
World Fair
for every aspect of this fair.
Yes.
There was a fight for who was going to classify. There was a fight for who was going to electrify. There was a fight for who was going to build the stuff. There was a fight for where the fuck it was going to be hosted.
Oh yeah.
We're getting into it.
I'm so excited.
So the original idea is often said to be given by a Dr. Carlos Zaremba, otherwise referred to in some texts as T.W. Zaremba. I'm not sure why there's this confusion, but in a lot of the older books that I found on this from right when the fair was going on, referred to him as T.W. Not sure why.
I mean, everyone was going by their first initials, H.H. Holmes.
It was... it's just very popular. So his idea was to have a 400-year anniversary of Columbus discovering the Americas, hence the name the Columbian Exposition. And he first told this idea at the Copper Institute in 1882 to a panel of, illustrious people that would likely, be helpful to listen to it.
Possible investors,
yeah. The Shark Tank of the Copper Institute. Then he traveled around telling people wherever he went. It wasn't really quite catching on. And then when he was in Wisconsin visiting some people, he found out that a Chicago newspaper had posted a letter by somebody pretty much leaking his plans, saying we should totally do this, blah, 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 blah. And he was like, I'll be right there. And so he books it to Chicago and begins to try and work on this concept for a World's Fair. And it takes a long time for this to catch on. But eventually, in November 24th of 1885, years and years before this would actually occur, he finally receives a license to organize the Chicago Columbian Centenary World's Fair and Exposition from the Secretary of State. So he's getting traction. It's getting there. But it wouldn't be until another 4 years later that the first World's Fair bill would be introduced to the Senate on December 19th in 1889. So that makes it kind of official. It's really getting government backing now, which is what he would need to put on a fair of this size. And what essentially this bill did was it created the World's Columbian Exposition Board, otherwise known as the National Commission. And so what happened and how they picked the National Commission was that President Harrison assigned 2 people from each state and territory, and a few at large, to form this board, this entity that was going to oversee the creation of this World's Fair. And various entities loaned money to this project. Some were the states. The states had to pay for their own exhibitions. The government loaned them money, which they needed to have paid back. And also they had investors. So private investors and things were also looking for this. So keep this in mind, because at some point, this fair has to be making money.
Yeah.
And so the problem is then, where the fuck are we going to have this huge ass fair? Like, where would we have this?
Yeah.
And they're like, well, we have these 2 big cities. Chicago was kind of damaged from the fire.
Well, also, like, Chicago was very industrial at the time, too. So it's like, where should we host this fair? Well, would definitely not downwind from the slaughterhouses.
Right. And you're right. And it was very hard to figure out, positionings when it was in Chicago because of that. So for the longest time, it was narrowed down to New York versus Chicago. 2 big cities, Chicago not quite as big as New York, and they're, fighting back and forth to who's going to do this. What ends up happening in Chicago's favor is that I believe it was the mayor had the idea to form the Chicago Company. And what this was essentially they raised $5 million and divided it into $10 shares, and all of like the 1% bought some.
Oh.
So yeah. Any sort of person, there was like hoteliers, there was oil barons, there was railway people, there was, all sorts of big name Gilded Age moneymaker types, monopoly men, bought up some of this. And so it gave them the edge they needed to beat out New York, because New York tried to outbid them. They were like, oh, you got 5 million, we got 10 million.
Yeah.
And then Chicago could meet them, and then kept throwing in things to the deal because they knew people.
Yeah.
So ultimately, Chicago beats New York's bid. And that Chicago Company of shareholders becomes the board of directors of the Chicago Company. And it's a local governing body, essentially, at this point, that controls all of the planning and the executing for the fair. Whereas the National Commission that was actually like elected to, by the president to do this, they just end up becoming like advisory role kind of people.
Name only, essentially.
Right. They do have a little bit of, skin in the game where they can say, absolutely not. You can absolutely not do that. And there was a couple times where they did have to put their foot down. But, at the end of the day, they got away with a lot of things.
Yeah.
Something else that I thought was also interesting was that this was a time where women were actually getting some say in this as well. Susan B. Anthony lobbied Congress for women's involvement in this fair, and by an act of Congress, they created the board of lady managers for the fair.
Oh, wow.
So women had their own board within the fair to handle what was considered like the women's affairs. So super cool. But this becomes the undertaking of the century. I cannot convey how massive this was.
And it was chaotic at the same time. From what I remember, it sounded like any direction you turned was a different sitcom going on.
Yes.
Or like melodrama or something.
And we're going to be looking at some of them.
I love it. Thank you. Yes. This is what I live for.
It's not all about spitting boring facts, people. I had to look at some things that I just thought were comical. So, this place was massive, and I'm going to show you some examples of how massive it was, because I'm a firm believer, and this will come up again, that this was the fucking Epcot of the day.
Yes.
So after deciding on Chicago, it took a long time to actually decide where in Chicago to have it. Like you said, it was an industrial city. It wasn't all very welcoming or pretty, and it wasn't completely rebuilt yet from the fire in the 70s, the 1870s. But they finally settled on an area called Jackson Park, which is in the south of Chicago. And essentially, they had to reclaim the area because it was swamp and brush.
Yeah.
686 acres of it.
Damn.
So they had to pretty much dredge the whole thing up and fill it in with sand.
Yep.
And that didn't work to keep any mud or anything at bay. It still leaked through. But they got it to where they said, it's good enough to build on, good enough. And
is that I'm guessing that just becomes the slogan of the construction of the fairs.
Good enough to build on. Good enough to build on.
Sure. Good enough.
To do all this, it cost about $25 million to build all of this because this was massive. The architecture, now here's the real kicker. The architecture, some of it was permanent, like 80% of it was temporary.
Oh.
You spent all that money and all that time to build temporary structures. So
what the hell?
It made it, I get it in a way that, like, if it's going to make you money, but at the same time,
But also, like, have some forward thinking. Be like, okay, if we knock this out of the fucking park, this can either be a recurring thing, or it can be a monument to, like, one of the coolest things that we've ever done, and it can live on as, like, a museum, essentially. And then, no, come on, people, go rack for rack, get your skills up. You're not thinking like a fucking businessman, calling yourself the fucking Gilded Boys. Bullshit. You're not thinking forward.
They're like, fuck that. I'm going to spend like $100,000 on this building, and then we'll just like tear it down at the end of the season.
What? It's just money.
It's just money. How much could a temporary building cost? $5,000. Like,
how much could it cost? Like a laborer or something. $2.
Yeah.
His name was Jared, and he had a family. Whatever.
So
hire a new one.
They ended up making about 400 buildings, one of which was technically larger square footage wise than the Pyramid of Giza. Damn.
Bass Pro Shop.
It is, yeah. Oh my gosh, what if we held hands behind the Bass Pro Shop pyramid at the World's Columbian Exposition?
What if we kiss behind the human zoo exhibits at the Columbian Exposition? What did I just say?
God. Expedition. I keep saying expedition or like exhibition. It's exposition. Like it's an expo.
Hey,
so y'all just gonna have to get over that.
Hey, we never claimed, and I stand 10 toes behind this. I never claimed that I could pronounce a single fucking word.
I never claimed to be a linguist. So all in
linguist.
All, what?
I'm just languishing.
Oh, I'm a languish. Yeah. All in all, this building materials wise included 500,000 feet of brick paving, 70 miles of sewer plumbing, and 415 miles of electrical wiring to put this all together.
I bet that was all of the temporary stuff.
Yeah.
The buildings will stay, but
just gut it.
That infrastructure, fuck you guys.
Cut the lights.
As soon as the last
show's over.
That show's over. All right, start stripping the piping.
Yeah. This would have been copper wire stream.
Exactly.
So it employed over 25,000 people over the course of its construction. And a fun little note from one of the articles I read was that the two main classes of fair workers were actually considered tramps and college students because they were like younger aged white males.
Mm-hmm.
It was just kind of like a weird demographic they had. They're like, yeah, it's all these kind of people that seem to be working.
So there's a really fun book to read. It's fiction. It's by something Larson, but it's Devil in the White City. And
and we're gonna learn all about the White City.
Love. So I just keep on thinking about that. And so when you're like, people were flooding to the city to get jobs, essentially. There were. And it also kind of made it right.
Wasn't easy to get this job, though.
No.
There were so many people that you had to have luck, essentially.
Yeah. And also for like hospitality jobs around the time that it was about to open, too, like with local hotels or building new hotels to house people. I remember something about the outcome Like people would come multiple times, like it was a long time while it was open. They were not expecting like people to come multiple times,
Right.
and with, you know, being able to
now all
to
the
afford that.
workers lived on site essentially. I mean, you could go home if you lived around and you wanted to go home, they weren't going to stop you. But if you came to work there was like barracks and tents and things that they would have you go to. It was not pretty, but you wouldn't have to find a hotel. And at any given time, the employed number of people was about at 16,000 people. So this was the second largest employer in the entire United States at the time, second only to the railroad.
Damn.
So it was fucking insane. This I can't even explain to you the magnitude of how huge this place was, except in my next slide.
Yeah.
And there were a lot of delays to construction. So the fair actually was supposed to open in 1892 for the actual anniversary of Columbus. But because of weather, strikes, materials, just everything went wrong. They had to delay until 1893. So just to show you how big this exposition was, it was 686 acres, which is about a square mile. Disneyland in California is only 500 acres. This place was fucking bigger than goddamn Disneyland. That is insane to me. So on the map, for those of you who are listening and can't see, it's pretty much like this almost rectangular. It kind of veers off at the bottom, and it has this really random stick arm hanging out of it. And what that stick arm is the Midway Plaisance.
It's essentially like the mall. Where
yes.
Where
it's a strip, going through. And then there's the White City is that big portion on the map. And they called it the White City because all the buildings were like this very neoclassical marble look. And it's debated on why that is. Some people say it was intentional and that they meant for it to be that highbrow look. And then other people will say that it was because they ran out of time. They couldn't paint everything.
Yeah.
So that also could be a reason because they were, pressed for time.
No, I'm looking at these maps and I'm realizing I'm just kind of enjoying the revelation that growing up in different regions and everything, the Disneyland comparison holds nothing in my head. I have no clue.
To me, it's the fact that it's like this massive theme park that's supposed to be encase a whole village.
But then I look at Chicago and I'm like, oh man, I can kind of gauge how big that is. Oh shit, that's huge.
And it was right on Lake Michigan, and that was part of the allure of having it located here is they wanted the water feature to kind of resemble Columbus coming to the shores of America.
Yeah.
So that was, the whole...
Not them shores, but,
right,
shores.
Right. They had this beautiful statue of, like, a ship with, like, Columbus leading the helm or whatever, which, I mean, fuck Columbus, but, like, it was a very beautifully done statuary. And they didn't just do buildings, they did statues, horticulture, fountain features, everything.
I'm pretty sure that in sophomore year of high school, I did a project with some friends and we did modern day Columbus just to show like how ridiculous Columbus was.
Right.
Going into like my grandma's house and being like, we own this place now. And my
squatters' rights.
Yes, we screamed that, I think. And then my grandma just standing there. It was nighttime as well. And my grandma's just standing there like in her nightgown going, oh, hello, girls. Do you need anything to eat? Oh, it's wonderful to see you. And I was like, the hospitality kind of hits home in the context as well. Because it's like, oh, hey, what up? And then it's like, cool. So anyway.
So then to show you the largest building was the Manufacturers and Liberals Arts Building, which actually is still in Chicago. I think it's an art museum.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's massive. It's absolutely hulking.
Yeah.
To see this in this time period. So this was one of the permanent buildings. And it was just massive. Like,
I'd love to see that.
This is like...
in its heyday.
It's giving European majesty.
Yes.
And that was part of what the White City portion of the fair was designed to emulate, was that European culture, highbrow look. Whereas something like the Midway Plaisance was a little bit more lowbrow, common folk.
And during this time, wasn't like so there were a lot of oil barons, there were a lot of like railroad barons and bankers and stuff becoming the new like nouveau riche.
Right.
And they were also trying to essentially establish like hierarchy, like social.
Right. So there's the old money
establishment,
and the
like-
new money, and then there's the middle class who want to emulate.
I was about to say, like, they're trying to
the rich.
emulate kind of like, and that rich class was trying to emulate in the States
Right.
that European kind of class hierarchy.
Yes. So an interesting part of this fair that I wanted to cover first was the Colombian Guard. This was their own security force that they had for the exposition,
Mhm.
which, I mean, I guess if I think about it, it's entirely necessary because they were bigger than the police force in Chicago at the time. They needed more manpower.
Just a whole bunch of mall cops.
Oh, it's a shit ton of mall cops. By opening day, they had already dealt with about 280 plus fire strikes, etc. Not disasters, but like emergencies.
Mm-hmm.
So because they were employed, before the fair was done, and because they were, making sure people weren't breaking into the construction site and stuff.
I wonder if they had any connections to the Pinkertons.
Actually, they were considered to be less heinous than the Pinkertons.
Wow.
But more heinous than regular cops.
Yeah, that sounds like
They're
it's
in between heinous.
tracking.
They're in between heinous. Because I did look it up.
Heinous is heinous is heinous.
On the heinous bar of history, insert graphic here, the Colombian Guard sits at a nice chaotic neutral.
Okay, I'm picturing the yep.
So at the fair's height, it was about 2,000 employees. They pretty much would switch off between another group of 2,000. They would never have like more than that at one time. They'd switch shifts. But you also had to pass a physical fitness test to be on the Colombian Guard, which you think most security things have you do. However, you had to be jacked to apply to the Colombian Guard. Well, perhaps not entirely jacked, but they did have a chest measurement minimum. So there was like a reporter that went and like, I'm gonna apply just so I can give the story about the process. And he like, they did like a fake examination or whatever on him, and they're like, you wouldn't pass. And he's like, what?
Your titties aren't big enough.
They said his titties weren't big enough. They said, sorry, you need to be a B cup at most.
Sorry, we need big titty goth boyfriends.
Yeah, they said sorry.
We need big ol' honkers.
And while
Tig bitties.
they need tig biddies for the fair. How else are we gonna get the women to come?
They need manogram.
Yes. Oh my gosh.
They need
breasticles. And
for the resticles.
And this was a problem in some ways because while, yes, I understand they want to have standards.
Titty
also
bang bang.
Titty bang. We're terrible.
I'm sorry.
It's a problem because it let them be racist. Because instead of they could literally physically examine somebody who was an African American and they would be like, sorry, you don't meet the test.
Yeah.
And they'd be like, what the hell? A guy who is skinnier than me just got in. And they're like, sorry, we don't have to explain. So it was shitty. Yeah.
It was shitty. They only let in big titty bitch bastards.
Yeah. And 15,000 applied, but only 4,000 ended up getting hired.
I want to say that I am holding my tongue for a lot of this training and everything because must be nice to have a trained force.
Right? So even with being trained, there was still a guards versus worker mentality.
100%.
This is like a very small prison experiment.
That's why I asked if they had any connections to the Pinkertons, because I saw that they were included in fires and strikes and everything.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh.
They weren't as bad. They the violence was kept to a minimum.
Pinkertons were like murdering people, so weren't as bad.
Yeah.
That means that they were still doing, brutality and shit.
Yeah, they did get their ass kicked though by a worker that just wanted to have a cigarette. I thought it was so funny. Don't
stand in between me.
It was
and
in
a
one
nice,
of the village
cool
sections.
Nicotine break.
It was in one of the villagers like sections, and they were like, "Hey, you can't smoke here, or whatever. You can't do this." And the person literally like beat the shit out of them, and people came to like help them.
You barrel-chested motherfucker! I'll show you a barrel.
Truly.
My knuckles.
So they tried their best, but enforcement was shoddy at best, But opening day. So before opening day of the fair, they had a dedication of the buildings and / commencement ceremony on October 21st of 1892.
They would have slammed champagne against some of the walls, but they wanted to make sure that they were standing when people were coming in. That's how flimsy they were. If you tried to smash them
and then fall down.
Dominoes down the mall.
And essentially the ceremony was to honor Columbus with dedication, and ultimately the buildings were dedicated to humanity.
You know what? I honor Columbus every morning. I wake up and I take a nice long piss. I say, "Hey, Columbus." Don't include that.
This one's for you. Yeah.
Don't include that, but I had to say it.
And part of the celebrations included a 5,000 person choir and an orchestra. So it was a very big event. About 100,000 people attended. And then the official opening day was on May 1st of 1893. President Cleveland was there, and he gave the opening speech, and he lit the infamous electric switch. So it was essentially a giant telegraph key.
Mm.
And once he pressed it, the entire fair lit up like a fucking firecracker. Just banners unfurling, trumpets blasting, all the engines simultaneously kicking on, the big whir of electricity, all to the big wow of 300,000 people.
That would be awe-inspiring.
It was so amazing.
In the purest form of the word, awesome.
Yes. And the electricity itself is interesting because there was, like I said, there was also a bid to do the electric. And that was called the Battle of the Currents between Nikola Tesla and Thomas Edison.
AC and DC.
AC and DC. Yeah.
Rock on, motherfuckers! It's on the back of my sister's sewing machine. AC/DC. It means power.
So, DC was direct current, AC alternating currents. Ultimately, Nikola Tesla won the battle as far as being able to light the fair. So that was huge as well, also relying, on a very specific kind of power that was relatively new. So very inventive already at the opening. I also like to note that there was a special appearance of the Liberty Bell. I just feel like that's very
who's her handler?
Yeah,
who set that up? Who's her publicist?
Who's her publicist? Miss Liberty Bell. Welcome to the stage. So it was
3 nights only, hosted by Liberty Bell.
It was a lot of fanfare. I mean, to have the Liberty Bell shipped there, and that's a lot too.
That's where she got her crack.
Was it?
No.
Oh, in Chicago, that's where she bought her crack. Miss Liberty Bell.
No, the CIA had not introduced that to Chicago yet.
So I wanted to give a little breakdown on the buildings. Now, most of these buildings are the permanent buildings that were created. So
it was like a university.
Yes.
It was awesome.
So everything within the White City bounds was kind of like this highbrow educational-esque culture, whereas the Midway Plaisance was more of the fun stuff. So the buildings for the White City were things like the Children's Building, which was kind of like this nursery playhouse you could drop your kids off at and be like, "See you guys, I'm off to get a corn dog."
What?
Fun fact, only one baby was left behind. I think that's a fucking miracle to be open for they were open for at least 6 months?
Yeah, it was a long time.
And so that's a fucking miracle that only one family left the baby. But good news, the baby was adopted by a fair worker who recently had lost a child.
At the
Good news, everyone. Yes. So they left Listen, it's America, guys. If you have a free daycare, someone's gonna leave their baby. That's just what it is. That's just America. You know I'm right. You're telling me one of these white trash people ain't gonna leave their goddamn baby?
I know. I mean, I literally work at a public setting where people think that it's a-okay just to leave their kids. And it's we are not your babysitters.
Yeah. Well, they got that covered. They said, "We got your babysitters." And they had the Children's Building. They also had an agricultural building, which had one of my favorite features of the fair, which was a giant cheese that was 6 feet high and 22,000 pounds.
Welcome
from Ontario, Canada.
I know it's from Ontario, but I just want to say welcome to the fucking Midwest.
Yeah.
That being like one of the crown jewels of this fair.
Yes.
Amen. Love it.
Like, and this fair in general, people, was the place to go to see wonders.
Mhm.
This was the biggest and the best and the finest from everywhere in America. You didn't bring your rinky-dink science project here. You brought the next thing that was going to change humanity. So you didn't bring your, oh, this is my nice little fancy goat cheese. You're like, no, I'm bringing you a fucking 22,000 pound cheese.
Yeah.
Like, it's Ripley's Believe It or Not.
It's called a
shit.
fair for a reason.
Yeah.
We are going outrageous. We are going.
Yeah.
We are having competitions for things that you did not even know what you could have a fucking competition for.
Exactly. They also had the Department of Ethnology building. That was anthropological. So that was things like
Was that where they had the living exhibits?
yes and no. There were exhibits in this building. The living exhibits were in the villages in the Midway.
Okay.
So the person who was in charge of this department, his name was G. Brown Good, I believe. But
I'm just thinking that would be a great name for a color.
oh yeah.
G brown, good.
Good.
It's kind of a greenish brown,
Yeah.
and it's kind of okay.
So they had some displays, and they had, you know, like people there doing like living history or like a couple people examples, but the villages with people actually performing, I believe that was mostly in the Midway.
Yeah, because they would have
They needed the space.
they would have people like from tribes, native tribes,
right.
displayed in what they sometimes actual traditional clothing and sometimes what they kind of
Right. And we'll get into that
portraying.
actually.
Oh, cool.
So the Department of Ethnology, I will say it was very anthropology at that time coded. In the 1800s, anthropology was very like in its baby form of like, we're going to classify this, we're going to give the classification and whether it's right or wrong. And they just, you know, there's so much growth that's happened in anthropology over the
Yes.
years that this is kind of like that embarrassing time
I'm
where
gonna do the
it's-
low hanging fruit.
Yeah, yeah.
Where it's essentially they were still grave robbers, but they finally titled.
Yeah, yeah.
themselves.
They're like, you know, we dug up
No,
this
this
dead
is for
body.
studies.
Yeah, it's for studying. So then there was the women's building, which was part of the board of lady managers. That was their whole overseeing was what was going to go on in this building. And not a single thing in this building was made or touched by a man, including the building was built and architected only by women.
Love.
Only by
What?
women.
That's
I think
awesome.
that is a bitchin' move.
That's awesome.
So I think that was really cool because this is at a time where women didn't really have a forefront or a say for most anything.
Yeah.
But they were gaining some traction. So to do this kind of exposition of women's skills was big.
The title of the group just kind of cracks me up at this.
The board of lady managers.
It's just like the pantsuits.
Just make them sound fancy. Yeah. Like,
I'm just like, oh, I don't know. It just kind of cracks me up. I don't know why. The imagery, I think.
yeah. They also had a forestry building, livestock and horticulture building, the Palace of Mechanical Arts, which I believe was where all of the engines that powered the fair were stored so you could view them working.
So many dads just spent
Camped
so
out
many
there.
hours
So many
there.
autistic guys
They just went,
loving it.
do it again.
Yeah.
Cycle through that fucker again.
There was the
Thank you.
transportation building, mines and mining building, fish and fisheries building, the Palace of Fine Arts, and the government building, which had interesting things in it. You'd think it would just be like examples of like government, but instead it was the patent office. It showed like weird novelty patents. It also showed Department of War novelties, like weapons that maybe didn't make
This
the
is
cut.
like the Smithsonian
And the Smithsonian did
in
have a hand in it.
Chicago.
Yeah. And it also had, you know, historic documents. It'd be cool to have some
Yeah.
founding documents. The Smithsonian does tie into this with the Department of Ethnology because the guy who ran the Department of Ethnology was the secretary for the Smithsonian. And the Smithsonian had just recently acquired its good name from the past World Fair.
Mhm.
So, you know, they were kind of gaining traction as being a forefront leader in, you know, knowledge of humanity.
Cool.
But let's talk about the good, the bad, and the ugly of the fair. So,
Love.
the supposed benefits of this exposition were for people to have better knowledge of the Americas,
Mm-hmm.
because people from all around the country and all around the world were coming in to see this.
Part of the reason they attributed it and titled it as the Columbian Expo. Back then, essentially, it was to show how
great everything was.
This thought experiment was able to evolve, essentially.
Right. And actually,
gleaming example of
President Harrison, I believe, invited the world to come. He made a public declaration saying, everybody everywhere, come see this cool shit.
Yeah.
So it was really, showing off American, ingenuity, I suppose. And, he wanted to extend people's knowledge of, ancient races. They said Aborigines. This was a big thing where like the white city kind of plays in as like this highbrow culture thing. It wanted to show the evolution of mankind. Didn't play out well. But they also wanted to show human industry advancement and skill. Now, with those good intentions comes some fatal flaws of the fair, and that was that it completely disregarded African Americans and all involvement. Frederick Douglass was there, but he was representing Haiti. So a lot of African American activists did try to appeal to like the National Commission, to the board of directors, and fell on deaf ears. They did try the board of lady managers, being like, hey, you guys just got in there. Can you like help us?
And they probably hit them with the...
We hardly got in ourselves.
Yeah.
That was kind of what they were like.
But also don't pull up the ladder from behind you at the same time. But it's like, that
was
stuck between a rock and a hard place.
Yeah, and that was the problem. They did want to help. They ended up assigning one person to like help, but that person was like from the deep south and her husband was like a baron. And so it was,
they did not help.
they tried, but they weren't thinking. They weren't thinking it through. And also they had just got, their go ahead to be at the fair. So they weren't really in a good position to help.
They tried to help without consulting those who needed the help, essentially.
Right. It was not good. It was
we're sending an advocate. Okay, who's the advocate? Somebody who advocates against everything that you hold dear.
Yeah.
And then they go, I don't want that advocate. What? No, sorry.
Then you won't have any, I guess.
We took a vote. Sorry. What?
Yeah. It fell on deaf ears most of the time, and it sucked. Another flaw of the fair was that there were poor labor practices, which is a shocker during the Gilded Age, I know. The workers were underpaid. I think it was 10 cents a day.
Could only pay for one dance.
10 cents a dance. So they were underpaid, and the fair would go to drastic measures to intimidate workers. Now, the fair had a very strict deadline that they were working towards. So being the money-hungry people they are, they want to avoid any difficulties arising to stop them from that deadline.
They also want to see their investments come back to them as soon as possible, too.
Right. So to do this, they would go to drastic measures, including putting a fence up around the entire fair area to keep union organizers out. And they actually hired John Bonfield from the Haymarket riot to head their Secret Service branch of the Columbian Guard as an intimidation tactic. Aren't they so nice? They're nice, right? They're not.
I feel tingling in my nose. And dear listener, that is how I know that I am. Are you fucking kidding me? The Haymarket? Are you kidding me? What? Oh no, they were a little bit better than the Pinkertons. No.
Well, he ended up he didn't kill anybody this time.
No, but it's the fucking name. That's the thing. It's a psychological warfare.
They wanted to intimidate them. I will say about the unions, though, they did cause problems as far as actually getting people employed for the fair, because a lot of people were coming to the fair that didn't have a means to support themselves, tramps, and they barred them from helping.
Yeah.
So there was difficulties there, too.
Also, at this time, there was kind of starting to be a divide between, like, the AFL and other unions, where it was like, well, it doesn't have to be considered quote unquote skilled workers. It can be workers who are being apprenticed or on their way to becoming those skilled workers, but it kind of barred a lot of people from even entering without certain pathways and foundations set. And so there was starting to be a divide between the labor movement in that stuff.
And that's awesome. That you can fill in with that, because that's the part that I didn't get. I'm like, why wouldn't they want them to work?
Because you're like, you're supposed to be advocating for all workers. And that's the thing, is that's when it kind of started dividing. There was a camp where it was, no, we want to fight for all workers, rights to work, rights to be able to live a good life. And then people are like, no, we want to make a hoop. Essentially, the unions, you would have to sign up to be a union member.
Right.
And during this time as well, there's only so many skilled workers that you can get without finding a union person.
Right.
So then once you talk to a union person or a union person is interested, sometimes then that's when the union intervenes or gets involved, not intervenes.
But very interesting.
Mm-hmm.
So another problem was that the Native American involvement in the fair was used for like examples of societal evolution and entertainment. So thanks, G. Brown Good. He was the ethnology department head that was the secretary for the Smithsonian and an unrepentant eugenicist. And
I swear, if the common theme throughout this
is eugenics this season
is eugenics, I think
we've mentioned it every episode. We're going to have a eugenics slide.
We are going to, and it's going to be us kicking like Hitler in the balls or something.
Yeah. So they used the Native Americans as examples to show like, oh, the progression, like, look at how savage we used to be and now we're not. Isn't that great, everyone? Or they would do it to show like, you know, their ways of life, but they weren't really their ways of life because they had already been converted to Christianity for many years. They'd already been taken over from the reservations. So the Native Americans that were on display in some of these villages were wearing wigs.
Yeah.
They were in garb they'd never seen.
This was also the time that they were touring around like Black Hawk.
When that comes to play in as well, because the whole Wild Bill show comes in.
Oh, cool.
So Native American involvement was very much a caricature because they had already lost that culture. Mm-hmm. And they did find people that were still in like the natural element, air quotations. People would literally have a job of going out to find them.
Yeah,
which was difficult.
To like what was left of like reservations and stuff.
Oh, and they went way farther even than just what was in the United States. They went all over and grabbed people.
Yeah.
And they didn't necessarily keep them in great conditions either because they forced people like the Inuit to essentially be in the summertime with the fur garb.
Yeah, and I think that they had like Mongolian like tribesmen and people from Siberia as well showing like the traditional garb.
But that means you can't take it off because you're supposedly showing what it's like where you live, even though you're in the devil's asshole now.
which is the
Midwest. So I'll tell you what, there is a very TikTok moment from this fair that I just think is fucking hilarious. And if TikTok would have existed back then, this would have happened. So part of the Native American story of some of the things that happened at the World's Exposition in Chicago, one event involved a Native American Lakota by the name of Rain in the Face. Now, supposedly, Rain in the Face cut out Thomas Custer's heart. So that's the brother of, General Custer.
Yep.
But he later confessed to not knowing who it was he cut out his heart.
It was some guy.
But it was his claim to fame.
He had blonde hair.
Yeah, it was his claim to fame for a long time. And he actually worked all summer at the Sitting Bull cabin exhibit. So he, would work there. He would dress, do the living history for people. He would take photos with people. And everyone just loved him because of this, illustrious story about Thomas Custer. So one time, a female journalist from Cleveland came prepared with both a priest and a Presbyterian pastor and asked him to marry her. And she was like, well, just pick which one you want. We'll make it happen. I feel like that's a TikTok video of someone coming up to you with like a priest and a pastor being like, do you want to get married? I have the pastor right here.
I don't see a rabbi option. So
would you rather have $10 or would you rather marry me?
Pepper spray in the face. Pepper spray in the face, please.
Double it and give it to the next one.
Thought daughter.
His managers did have to pull him away from her. She was kind of fanatical.
So he was down to clown?
No, he was.
Oh,
they were concerned with her. Yeah,
he attacked her for the audacity, or
no, he was just like, this is really weird. And the managers were like, "Ma'am, we're gonna have to pull him away."
Oh, okay. So sorry, he has another engagement.
Yeah. So RIP Chicago's World's Fair, you would have loved TikTok. So, this talk of there being like two separate worlds tends to fall between like the White City and the Midway Plaisance. It was like two separate worlds. Mm-hmm. There's the lower class versus the middle and upper classes. Because the middle and upper class, the middle class is relatively new. They want to emulate the upper class. and they tend to stick with their pursuits more than the lower class.
Mm-hmm.
But the White City was the pinnacle of highbrow culture. It was supposed to be for the educated, for, the inventive. And the Midway was more like a carnival and a saloon, had a really rowdy baby that was into blood sport.
I mean, welcome to the middle class.
So, it had something for everybody. So the Midway Plaisance, also known as the Mudway Nuisance, because it was built on a swamp and didn't fare well with that.
Welcome to Chicago.
It was Epcot, man. It was full of villages. And, coincidentally, these villages were kind of shoved into that corner because they didn't fit with the White City aesthetic.
And wasn't there also, I'm sure during this time, there was also kind of this like black market too, where it was kind of like this behind the scenes society as well, where it's like the laborers go off and do their own thing.
Right.
Too.
They have their own interests.
You go to the fair during the day and then you go to the parlors at night.
Right. So Saul Bloom, who was an acolyte of P.T. Barnum, was hired by the board of commissioners for the Chicago Company to run and make as much money as possible the Midway Plaisance. Like, he wanted him to have complete control over it, to make it a moneymaker. And it was, because, man, they still had loans to repay.
Mm-hmm.
The Midway was going to be their moneymaker. And it had carnival rides, blood sports, sex appeal, and saloon culture.
Yep.
Just a few of the attractions would have been staged sword fights, needle swallowing performed by Eric Weiss, also known as Harry Houdini, beer gardens, Egyptian belly dancers, hot air balloon rides, and taverns in Vienna where you could buy a faux cane that could be filled with beer. So if you couldn't make it to the next saloon,
who needs Las Vegas?
Who needs Vegas?
This was
a real strip.
This strip in.
Yeah.
Showing ankle.
Whereas things like Temperance was more in the style of the White City. So I thought I'd include some fun fair facts just to kind of show you monetarily wise where some things were at. So general admission was about 50 cents.
Mm-hmm.
So it was something most people, could work to afford. It was a little pricey.
And
but
they had publications out like promoting this
everywhere.
Before.
Yeah.
So it was like, oh no, we want to go to the World's Fair.
And everyone knew about it. But if a visitor to the fair decided that they wanted to walk and see every exhibit, they'd have walked over 150 miles.
I believe it.
It's a lot of ground to cover. It's a lot to see. So many floors in the buildings.
It's going to a new museum every day, essentially.
Yeah. And they had over 27.5 million visitors.
Damn. Which is like groundbreaking for that time.
I looked at the world population at this point for the entire world, and it's almost about 1% of the whole world went there, which is honestly statistically impressive.
Yes.
I know 1% doesn't sound like a lot.
Also, like, choosing for it to be in Chicago, too. I mean, it's not the smack dab middle of the United States, but it is the Midwest. So it is midway, kind of. And so more rural people could have visited. There was a lot of the breadbasket people could visit.
And conveniently, they had the railroad terminal built right into the fair.
Yes.
So you could ride the train and just land right at the Chicago World's Fair.
Yep.
It was very convenient.
The railroad popping up.
So that fun note about Buffalo Bill. So the Chicago Company wanted Buffalo Bill to be there because he had like a money-making Wild West show. Mm-hmm. But the National Commission said, no, that is lowbrow. We are trying to be nice to the Native Americans. We want to show them in an anthropological light. We want to observe. We don't want to make fun of them. Mm-hmm. And the Chicago Company was like, sure, fine. And then had Buffalo Bill set up shop right outside the exhibition doors. So
sure, okay, we're still inviting her.
And he made a killing.
Oh, I believe it.
So Buffalo Bill's Wild West show didn't like necessarily show the Native Americans and cowboys in a good light. Mm-hmm. It was very much so designed to be
the caricatures of like a Wild West book.
Yes. Yeah. Very
a penny novel or whatever.
Yeah.
Those were called.
It wasn't what they wanted to display, understandably, but they still made a killing. And to ride and to ride all the Midway Plaisance rides and attractions would cost about $372 in today's money.
Well, that's just a trip to Disneyland.
But that's a trip
nowadays.
to Disneyland. Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, they had a lot. They had camel rides, hot air balloons. They had the first Ferris wheel.
Yeah.
You could ride that. You could pay to see these different villages of people.
Also pay to see like new inventions and everything.
Yeah,
and
belly
test stuff
dancers.
out.
And there was a Congress of Beauty that was like the sex appeal part. It was showing like a harem, of scantily clad ladies, So people.
Yeah, where they could clutch their pearls and then also in the back of their heads go, oh, he's living the life.
Yeah.
Oh, I would never want that. You can barely keep your own wife
Truly.
happy, Derek.
What makes you think you could keep 10?
Exactly. They're keeping each other happy at that point.
Yeah. So the expo itself ran from May 1st to October 31st, 1893.
Halloween!
Yeah, so it ended on Halloween. I thought it was kind of fun. And so getting towards the end of our lovely expo expose, I wanted to cover some of the inventions that were discovered and created for and during this fair. The zipper, specifically for the Chicago one, that was cool. Postcards.
I was thinking of the amusement ride.
Oh, the zipper ride.
No, and I was like, whoa!
No. For amusement rides, they had what was called the ice railway. It was kind of like roller coaster adjacent, a luge adjacent. Yeah. The Ferris wheel that was created specifically for the Chicago World's Fair because they wanted something to rival the Eiffel Tower of the Paris Universal Exposition. And it was 264 feet high and built by George Ferris. There was a competition for other people to create like this huge monument essentially, and they ended up not going with any of them. They liked George Ferris's idea best. And so, thanks to him, we have Ferris wheels. But they also had postcards. People would send postcards to their relatives saying, hey, I made it to the fair. You should totally come. It's so cool.
Yep.
Which is crazy. I would think postcards would be a lot older.
Yeah, like...
It's just mail, flat mail. But also the U.S. postal system was relatively...
Yeah, you would think that they would have, like, postcards from, like, Paris or London or, the more travel
Maybe they just wrote letters.
Yeah.
And now they were getting well, I guess the rise too of quick printing and photography, they eventually could just be like, hey,
like not everyone has access to a camera, but we're able to print these pictures.
Yes.
So then somebody else who's never been here can enjoy the view.
I think that's the vibe.
Yeah.
The automatic dishwasher, fucking men. Preach.
Yeah, you didn't know the beauty of an automatic dishwasher until you moved here.
I didn't, and I'm never going back.
Yeah. I was like, oh no, honey, just you
never
wait.
Again. Juicy fruit flavored chewing gum by Wrigley's. That flavor was debuted specifically at the Chicago World's Fair. Pabst Blue Ribbon beer. Fun fact, never won a blue ribbon at this fair, but what they did was they tied a blue ribbon around the can so that when people were walking by with them, they were like, oh, that little can's got a cute little ribbon on it. What's that?
Marketing at its finest.
Yep.
Psychological.
And Aunt Jemima. So the caricature of Aunt Jemima is racist, but it was created for, to be this pancake syrup and at this point it was pancake mix. At the Chicago World's Fair, they actually hired someone by the name of Nancy Green to be there in person as the mascot. So that is kind of it's a glimpse on, once again, how African Americans are treated poorly at the fair. But as far as if you're a food historian, it's kind of an interesting tidbit about mascot history.
Yes. And also it's like, I find it interesting in a psychological and like sociological aspect where it's like people back then felt comforted by this image, a like older, larger than life Black woman from the kitchen, essentially, and trusts her product and trusts her name on the product because of like this deep sense of comfort in a way.
Yeah.
And then it's like we could just dive into the hypocrisy of it all, where it's like, whereas
this exposition is a microcosm.
Truly, like you could dive into cultural psychology and sociology and
which leads us to our end discussion. So my main things that when I was thinking of doing this project and when I finished working on it was that this expo really facilitated cross-cultural exchange and globalization in a world pre-internet. Nowadays we have all sorts of resources at the end of our phone. If I want to see how somebody's living in India, I just open up TikTok.
Yeah.
If I want to see how somebody's living in China, I open up, Facebook, and there's somebody, going through some sort of traditional process. It's at our fingertips now. But to imagine 100+ years ago, like almost 150+ years ago, that this would have blown your mind to see all these different cultures. All the states had an exhibit, everybody.
Yeah, and that access to knowledge is very interesting, but also the concept that it's very curated knowledge at the same time, because it was I'm sure it was filtered through like at least 3 boards.
Well, and because the 1% had charge of most of the fare.
Yep. And so it's like, okay, the public were being fed information or being provided information that was catered.
Yes.
And so that's very interesting as well.
Yeah.
And I've always kind of played around with the thought of, I don't know if we as humans in this time presently are supposed to be able to know exactly what is happening on the exact opposite side of the world.
Yeah.
As meticulously and as like first person-esque that we are through the internet, because like some people's brains are like not able to compute that.
Yeah.
Where it's like so it's very interesting. I like that approach where it's like this was information provided way before, in a pre-internet world, because you said that earlier with the prompt, like pre-internet, and I was like, Gilded Age and internet, we have about 100 years in between that. What are you talking about?
Yeah, to me it's
so
like
now
this,
I see what you're seeing.
Yeah, this is the globalization pre-internet of like people going to the German village and seeing Germany, seeing the Inuit village, with the Native Americans. It was just crazy.
Because also this was a way for people to devour information without also like being literate if they are not.
Yeah.
So, like this information is available if you have access to like a great collection in a library.
Yeah.
But also this is Chicago. These are people coming from North Dakota, South Dakota, Wyoming, Colorado, and they might come from smaller areas not being able to access those books.
Yeah.
And so, or even be literate. So it's like being able to do that first person, like, oh, okay, I'm able to see these people with my eyes. I think that then people are put on 2 pathways, whether they see them as like, oh, this is just another human, or, oh my gosh, my culture is so much better than that.
Right. It would mold to whatever the person's preconceived notions were. It was designed to be education and entertainment.
Yep.
Just like this podcast.
Yeah. Exactly. My eyes just went big and looked at Des like, oh my god.
It was designed to be highly educational, but also, highly entertaining. And it was designed for everyone. Now, that doesn't mean that it wasn't leaning in any sort of way, because the White City separation from the Midway kind of made itself known. It was separated by a fence. They didn't want any bleed over of that carny lifestyle into the White City, but it was still all together as one entity.
Because I'm sure the people of the White City loved to go down to that Midway at night and
have a little fun
and have that entertainment.
I can see the little ladies giggling in their hats at like the shirtless man
going to going and seeing a performance or 2, even like 2 young people on a date. I mean, it wouldn't be a date. It's 50 cents to get in. It'd be hard to get in and shit. But like, going over there and be like, oh, we're being a little bit naughty. We're seeing belly dancers, or we're seeing kind of a more lewd show in our culture.
It would be like us going to, and they still do host World's Fairs. The last one I think for the United States was in Louisiana, but it would be like us going to a World's Fair and like seeing a flying car. It'd be like, that's possible?
It's an expo. They still have
they call it the expo, I think now is like the name for it.
They have like tech expos. They have Comic-Cons. I would even put Comic-Con under this, because it's a worldwide thing where people from around the world come and also are able to enjoy like camaraderie over a subject or a certain thing.
I just think it'll never be as big and fabulous and massive as this.
No, I think they learned their fucking lesson.
I think they did this and then they were like, guys, we did too much.
Hey guys, we tried for an 8th wonder of the world. We kind of hit it. Let's not try it again.
Yeah. It's too nowadays it's too expensive. You'd never get someone to approve this budget.
Well, that we'd get approval, but would it be able to actually be done without somebody just pocketing it?
Yeah.
We're talking about a ballroom now. Hey, yo.
What was interesting as well about this time period in which this was held is that it was simultaneously in a boom of industry and a national depression, because we had the Panic of 1893. So
the run on the banks.
Yeah, it was kind of escapism. It was, just kind of get away and look at more positive things of life, something more interesting. It was also what seems to feel like the beginning of consumer-oriented culture.
I mean, I would believe that because I think that around this time, that 1% started seeing people below them in not as humans, but as money signs. How can they bleed the stone?
Yeah.
How can I get the labor without having to pay them enough, but also have them disillusioned and believing that they got the best deal.
Yeah.
While I pocket all the money.
Yeah.
And then that's also me being a cynical labor historian at the same time.
But it's true, right down to the concessions. I mean, their concession stands had all these exotic
Cracker
foods.
Jacks.
Yes, Cracker Jack was created there. All of these concessions for things that were a little bit exotic or maybe like fast foody were all of a sudden coming to light, and people were getting to try all these new foods, and even things like that was a huge moneymaker.
It's that commercialism.
Yeah.
They are marketing entertainment. They are marketing, putting, oh, well, you want escapism. You want some entertainment. Well, you're going to have to pay for it. It's like nowadays they're wanting us to subscribe to absolutely everything. Everything needs to have a subscription. Your fucking toaster needs to have a subscription. And it's like they do that because they know that sometimes people will just pay in order for the convenience. So it's been going on for over 100 years, babes.
Yeah. And who knows when it'll stop, but I know for sure that I sure wish that I could have seen it.
I would have loved to see it in its heyday. We would have put on our best skirts.
Because I love a museum.
Truly.
I'd be walking around there just jaw on the floor like, wow.
We still need to go to a couple of Midwestern museums and show you around. One of my favorites is the Field Museum in Chicago. And we did look it up, and it was built like the year after.
Yeah.
Wait.
You said
94. I was like 93 it opened. So 94. And it does kind of have that feel of grandeur where it's like, aha, well, we're Chicago. And I love Chicago. So
and it made Chicago iconic because it was like, wow.
Because Chicago at that time was like the industrial and slaughter capital.
It had like that look in my head of like, gray smokestacks and like
the jungle types.
Type
vibes.
Yeah.
And so this was like a glistening brown jewel in Chicago becoming Chicago.
But anyways, that is my spiel on the World's Columbian Exhibition of 1893.
This was wonderful. Thank you so much.
It was like so welcome.
I learned more about a subject that has interested me for years. So thank you so much.
Oh, anytime. This bleeds into everything that I read, always leads back to, and they visited the fair.
Truly.
Literally, I work for an archive, and one of like the main people stuff that's in the archive, he has a journal entry that he went to the World's Fair.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So it's like everything in my life always leads back to the fair. And I'm like, I have to figure out what the fuck this actually was. Because for the longest time, I thought it was like a carnival. And then I thought it was like a tech expo.
Yeah.
And I'm realizing it's everything.
No, it was like a cultural, not even a reset. It was a cultural establishment, reset, and going forward.
Yeah.
It was like, here's this, and let's go forward from here.
Yeah.
Interesting. Thank you so much.
Oh, you're so welcome. Well, I hope you all enjoyed this episode of the Hystorians podcast. You never know. The whole world's a fair.
We might be God's least favorite jesters, but god damn it, do we put our whole asses into it. So think of life as the World's Fair, and you're just jingling your bells like the jester you are. And that you can take home to the bank. Hopefully there's not a bank run like in the World's Fair leading up to it. Otherwise, that's what I'd call another day with the Hystorians.